before there were demons, before hell had a throne, before fear had a name. There were two angels whose voices once helped shape the music of heaven, not creatures of darkness, not monsters, not the twisted symbols we see in paintings or movies. They were beautiful. Belial, a being of persuasion, influence, charisma so powerful that entire choirs would pause just to listen when he breathed a note. Beelzebub, the architect of order, keeper of structure, whose hands could weave harmony out of chaos. They were admired, trusted, loved, and yet they fell. But here is the question most people never ask. How does someone who once lived in the pure presence of God choose to turn away? What happens inside a heart that has never known pain until the day it chooses pride? And why, out of all the angels that fell, did these two rise to power at the side of Satan, shaping what hell itself would become? This isn't the story of monsters. This is the story of hearts that broke, and once a heart breaks in heaven, the universe remembers it forever. Now stay close. Because what you're about to hear isn't just history. It's warning, it's reflection, it's truth, and it may reveal something about the world around us, and maybe about ourselves. Before we continue, a quick shout out. This is Gospel Insights. If you're new here, go ahead and like, subscribe, and click the bell icon so you don't miss any of our deep dive biblical explorations. Your support helps this channel reach more souls and shine more light. Heaven was a realm filled with motion, color, and harmony. Nothing was silent or still. Every wing that moved stirred gentle waves of sound, and every breath carried melody. Worship in heaven was not something performed. It was simply the natural atmosphere. It felt like belonging, like peace that had weight and warmth, like love made audible. Among the countless hosts of heaven, there were three whose presence shaped the tone of worship itself: Lucifer, Belial, Beelzebub. They were not rivals. They were companions, unified in purpose. Lucifer was the radiant bearer of light. His presence felt like morning rising over still waters. When he lifted his voice, creation responded, and the heavens themselves glowed brighter. Belial possessed a voice that carried emotion so deeply it could quiet the entire celestial host. He didn't command attention. He drew it gently. Angels listened to him because his voice felt like understanding, like compassion made musical. Being near him felt familiar, comforting, safe. Beelzebub worked differently. He was structure and order. While Lucifer brought glory and Belial brought feeling, Beelzebub shaped everything into harmony. He ensured the choirs moved as one, that every layer of sound blended, that nothing clashed. He brought balance and unity. Together, the three formed a kind of spiritual symmetry. Lucifer was brilliance. Belial was heart. Beelzebub was design. Their worship was not simply beautiful. It was identity. Imagine worship rising like waves of soft golden light, spreading warmth through the air. Angels singing in unity, each sound fitting perfectly into the next. No confusion, no jealousy, no sorrow, only clarity and oneness. That was heaven. And yet, even in a place where everything was whole, a single thought began to take shape in Lucifer's mind. It began quietly, so quietly that it did not seem dangerous. It sounded almost like curiosity. Why must all glory rise upward? Why must worship always point away from the singer? Why should the throne remain unreachable? At first, Lucifer did not speak these questions aloud. He simply held them. But thoughts, when planted in the heart, do not remain seeds. They grow. And as they grew in him, his light, once pure reflection, began to bend inward. Belial was the first to notice the change. Because Belial understood hearts. He always had. When he listened to Lucifer now, he felt something different beneath the music. Not hatred, not anger, but longing. A desire to be acknowledged as equal to the one who created him. Belial did not turn away. He listened. Where Lucifer carried the idea, Belial absorbed the emotion behind it. And when Beelzebub joined the conversation, he did not react with alarm. He simply understood the structure of what Lucifer suggested. He understood how authority worked, which meant he understood how it could be shifted. Lucifer became the vision. Belial became the voice that made others feel it. Beelzebub became the architect who could make it real. They were still beautiful, still admired, still singing. But the center of their worship had quietly moved. It no longer rose toward God. It circled back toward themselves. This is how darkness begins. Not with rage or rebellion, but with the desire to be more than what one was created to be. A longing that grows until it becomes a choice. And once that choice is made in heaven, the entire universe feels the shift. This is where the first crack formed. Invisible at first, but enough to change eternity. Change in heaven does not happen loudly at first. There is no thunder, no announcement. It begins the same way a season changes on earth. Quietly, slowly, almost softly. And that is how the shift started among the angels. The choirs still gathered. The music still rose. But something invisible had altered. Worship no longer held the same unity. Some angels began to follow the tone of Lucifer's voice more closely than the direction of their devotion. Belial's influence helped them feel that loyalty, and Beelzebub's organized leadership made it seem natural. To those present, it felt subtle, like the beginning of a thought they believed they had discovered on their own. Lucifer never openly declared rebellion. Not at first. Instead, he began to speak about identity, about potential, about the greatness within every angelic being. He spoke of glory not as something received, but as something deserved. His words sounded uplifting, empowering, noble even. He did not sound like a rebel. He sounded like a leader. Belial supported him quietly. He didn't argue or preach. He simply listened to others and gave them room to express their questions and doubts. He made those doubts feel valid. He made ambition feel reasonable. Beelzebub created gatherings. He structured choirs differently. Angels who aligned with Lucifer gradually found themselves grouped together. His changes were so strategic that no one suspected what was happening. A new community formed in heaven, one built not on worship, but on shared desire. And if we are honest, this is how division begins anywhere. At work, in families, in friendships. It rarely starts with open conflict. It starts with quiet agreement. Meanwhile, something else was happening. The throne room, once filled with unbroken unity, began to feel different. Angels who had always approached with joy now entered with hesitation. They worshipped, but some of them were watching Lucifer while they sang. The glory that once felt effortless now felt heavy. Something sacred was being strained, stretched, and pulled apart. And heaven felt it point one day. The music stopped. Not because Lucifer stopped singing, but because the atmosphere shifted in a way no angel could ignore. Lucifer was standing at the center of the gathered host. His light was still breathtaking. His voice still beautiful. But there was something unfamiliar in his expression. Something sharp. Something determined. That he spoke clearly. That he said that every being created in heaven contained glory. That glory was not meant to be given away endlessly. That worship should not be one-directional. He spoke of fairness. He spoke of identity. He spoke of equality. And then, the sentence that changed eternity: we are not servants. We are worthy. The moment those words entered the air, heaven itself reacted. Not in anger, in grief. Because creation knows its order. The stars know who placed them. The oceans know their boundary. The human heart, even in confusion, knows where it came from. But Lucifer was rewriting identity at its root. Belial stepped forward beside him, silent but resolute. His presence alone said, "I agree." Beelzebub stood on his other side, calm, composed, unwavering. His stance said, "I am ready to build whatever comes next." The host of heaven was divided. Some angels stepped back in shock. Some stepped forward in allegiance. Others stood frozen, unsure which way truth was leaning. And then the throne room trembled, not with force, but with sorrow, because when rebellion rises in a place of perfect love, the first sound that follows is not rage. It is heartbreak. Michael, the archangel of authority and strength, stepped forward. His voice was steady, but there was pain in it. He did not speak with fury. He spoke with love that had been wounded. "Lucifer, brother, you were created for the glory you are turning away from. Why are you doing this?" Lucifer did not look away. He did not tremble. He believed his words. And belief, when rooted in pride, becomes unbreakable. "I will not bow," he answered. "If I must bow to shine, then I am not light. I am only reflection. I choose to shine for myself." Those words ended heaven's unity. That was the moment the crack became a fracture. It was no longer an idea. No longer a question. It was rebellion. And the hosts of heaven prepared for a war unlike anything creation had ever witnessed. The moment rebellion was spoken into existence, heaven changed. Not in structure, not in appearance, but in spirit. Where unity had once flowed effortlessly, tension settled like a shadow. The air that once carried joy now carried caution. The music that once rose in harmony now echoed in silence. But war in heaven did not look like war on earth. There were no swords drawn out of rage, no shouting, no chaos in the beginning. Everything was still, perfectly still, the way a sky becomes silent before a storm no one wants. But everyone knows is coming. Lucifer stood with those who believed him, angels who admired his brilliance, who felt inspired by his language of identity and greatness. Belial stood beside him, not merely as support, but as a voice that quietly strengthened resolve. His presence reassured the uncertain, soothed the hesitant, softened the guilt of walking away from the one who had given them life. Beelzebub positioned the dissenters with precision, ensuring they were organized, unified, and ready. He understood strategy. He understood hierarchy. And he understood that order was required even in rebellion. Meanwhile, Michael gathered the loyal angels, not by force, not by persuasion, but by faith. His authority did not come from ambition. It came from devotion. Michael did not desire power. He simply desired truth. And because of that, angels trusted him. They followed not out of fear, but out of conviction. Gabriel stood near, steady and quiet. He was not a warrior first. He was a messenger. But messengers know the weight of words, and he understood exactly what Lucifer's words meant. This was not ambition anymore. This was separation, a tear in the fabric of eternity in a one-wanted war. But heaven cannot remain heaven where pride takes root. And so the moment came. Light flared, wings spread. The heavens shook with the first movement of conflict. Lucifer moved first, but not in violence. He lifted his voice, and when he sang, his followers answered. Their sound was beautiful. It was powerful. It was wrong. Worship that did not rise toward God began to fill the chambers of heaven. That was the first strike, because heaven's power is in worship. Worship is not a song. Worship is alignment. Who you direct your praise toward is who you declare sovereign. Lucifer's song declared sovereignty. Of self, Michael stepped forward, raising his voice in response. His worship was not flashy. It was not dramatic. It was steady, strong, honest, a declaration of loyalty. And as he sang, the ground of heaven itself responded. The loyal angels joined him, their voices rising like waves, pushing back the sound of Lucifer's chorus. War in heaven was not about weapons. It was about allegiance. It was about identity. It was about truth. But eventually, sound became clash. Worship became force. Light met light. Lucifer shone with brilliance, but it was a brilliance fueled by pride, not presence. Michael shone with a strength that came from surrender. Belial moved through the battlefield not with aggression, but with influence. He whispered certainty into the hearts of those fighting with him. He reminded them of why they had chosen this path. His power was persuasion, and persuasion in the hands of someone who believes they are right is a force as sharp as any blade. Beelzebub directed the movement of the rebel host. His strategy was precise, calculated, almost flawless. He understood heaven's order because he had once maintained it. Now he used that knowledge to undo it. And yet, something became clear as the conflict unfolded. You cannot overpower the one who created power. You cannot dethrone the one who shaped the concept of a throne. Lucifer fought to win. Michael fought because truth must stand. They were not equal. They could never be equal. The war was long only because God allowed every heart to reveal itself fully. Heaven is not a place where freedom is denied. Every being had to choose, and when choosing was done, the outcome was set. Lucifer did not fall because he was defeated in strength. He fell because he stood in opposition to the source of his own existence. Belial, who once sang comfort, now found his voice echoing in emptiness. He had given his heart to pride and influence, and now he would influence only suffering. Beelzebub, who once organized harmony, now would organize torment. The builder of structure became the architect of ruin, and Lucifer, the light-bearer, the one who once reflected God's glory, became a shadow of the glory he rejected. Then came the moment when heaven could no longer hold them. They were cast out, not with hatred, not with vengeance, but with finality. like a tear being sealed. Heaven did not celebrate. Heaven grieved. Because love never delights in losing those it created. But truth must stand. And so they fell, downward, away from light, away from harmony, away from the presence that once made them whole, and hell received its rulers, not because they conquered it, but because they were left only with themselves. The fall was not a fiery explosion. It was not dramatic in the way paintings or films imagine it. It was silent. It was the silence of something sacred being severed. The moment Lucifer, Belial, Beelzebub, and the angels who followed them were separated from heaven, the presence of God withdrew from them. And without the presence of God, the light they once carried had nothing left to reflect. They did not fall into a blazing pit. They fell into absence. Imagine a place without warmth, without music, without the sense of being known. Not darkness because something is covering light, but darkness because light no longer exists. That was the beginning of hell. A void. A hollow echo of what life was meant to be. Lucifer stood first. His beauty was still visible, but altered. The glow that once radiated with purpose now flickered with a restless hunger. He saw himself clearly for the first time without God's reflection, and what he saw did not satisfy him. His greatness felt incomplete. His majesty felt hollow. But pride does not admit emptiness. It only demands to be filled. Belial stood close to him, but his presence had changed as well. The warmth and understanding he once carried was now taken over by a strange bitterness. Where his influence once comforted others, now it worked to control them. Influence without love becomes manipulation. His voice, once gentle and healing, now sounded like a whisper that could twist truth into doubt. Beelzebub looked around at the void and understood immediately that this new kingdom would have to be constructed. He had always been the organizer, the architect of harmony. Now he turned that same gift into building a hierarchy of power. His order without righteousness became domination. His structure without love became oppression. His intelligence, once a blessing, became a weapon. And so, hell began to take shape, not because they intentionally designed it, but because the nature of who they had become shaped the realm around them. The atmosphere was formed from pride, the ground from despair, the air from longing that could never again be fulfilled. Every space in hell reflected separation from God. Lucifer sat upon a throne, but this throne did not feel like victory. It felt like a burden that demanded constant defense. He had to rule through fear, because fear was the only force that remained. Admiration cannot exist where love has departed. Respect cannot survive where truth has been abandoned. Belial became the voice behind temptation. The being who whispers not to lead one into sin directly, but to make sin feel reasonable. His influence is subtle. He does not shout. He suggests. He encourages doubt. He makes wrong feel justified. He makes pride feel natural. His work is not loud. It moves inside the heart where no one sees. Beelzebub became the force behind corruption. He takes what is pure and reshapes it into decay. Not instantly, but gradually. He turns holiness into compromise. He turns innocence into addiction. He turns purpose into obsession. His power is not in destruction, but in slow erosion. And Lucifer, now called Satan, became the ruler of deception. He is not the king of fire. He is the king of lies. His power lies in convincing you that what you feel, what you want, what you desire, matters more than truth. He does not need to defeat a soul. He only needs to convince the soul to turn away from the one who loves it. This is the tragedy. They gained the independence they believed they deserved, but independence without God is not freedom. It is emptiness. They gained dominion over a kingdom, but the kingdom was built from loss. They gained the right to rule, but lost the ability to belong. Hell is not simply a place of punishment. Hell is the result of choosing self over love. It is what the heart becomes when it refuses to surrender. Lucifer, Belial, and Beelzebub do not reign as victors. They reign as exiles. They do not wear crowns of honor. They wear crowns of consequence. And every soul that enters their realm does not enter because God rejected them. They enter because they chose what these fallen ones once chose: to turn inward, to hold pride, to refuse surrender. The tragedy of the fallen angels is not that they were cast out. It is that they refused to return. Hell is loud, but also very silent. It is full, but also painfully empty. The screams echo, the fire burns, The darkness presses in, and yet, beneath all that noise, there is a hollow quietness. A quietness that feels like a question that has no answer. And in the midst of that emptiness, there is a throne. But it is not a real throne. It is a mockery of one. Belial sits to the left. Beelzebub sits to the right. Satan sits at the center. But none of them are at peace. None of them ever rest. Because deep inside, they all know the same truth. They are kings of nothing, rulers of a prison they cannot escape, masters of torment who are being tormented themselves, fallen beings who once stood in the presence of glory, now chained to the consequences of their own will. And sometimes, just sometimes, Satan remembers silence. He remembers peace. He remembers music and harmony and beauty that did not burn. Belial remembers the joy of purpose. Beelzebub remembers the warmth of belonging. But memory is a curse when you can never go back. This is where pride leads. This is where rebellion ends. This is the destination of I will not serve. And that is why their rule is not rule at all. It is punishment. They sit on a throne they do not deserve. And even if they did deserve it, it would still be meaningless. Because true rulership is not about power. True rulership is about love, service, light, and truth. And those things cannot survive in hell. So when people on earth say phrases like, I'm living my own truth, no one can tell me what to do. I don't need God, I am my own master. They do not realize that they are repeating the words that led angels to fall. Rebellion feels like freedom at first, but its destination is always bondage. Hell is not a kingdom of strength. It is a monument to what happens when someone tries to take the throne that was never theirs to begin with. Because in the end, there is only one true king. There is only one real throne. And it is not in hell. It is in heaven. And the one who sits on it is the one who does not force us to kneel, but invites us to choose. That is the difference. Hell is where choice has consequences. Heaven is where surrender has peace. Now before we continue, let me ask you, because reflection is the backbone of transformation, why do we chase the things that destroy us? Why do we fight the God who is trying to heal us? Why do we run from the only one who never stops loving us? Sometimes the greatest battle is not hell. The greatest battle is inside us. And that is where the real story turns next. Because now the question becomes, what does this mean for us? The story of Lucifer, Belial, and Beelzebub is not just a tale of ancient rebellion. It is a reminder of how pride grows, how influence shifts, how identity can drift when the heart forgets where its light comes from. These beings were not created as enemies of God. They were created in glory, beauty, and purpose. Their fall was not sudden. It was a slow turning inward, a quiet desire to stand separate from the one who gave them everything. And that is the lesson for us today. Darkness rarely enters life loudly. It arrives through small compromises. A little envy, a little pride, a desire to be seen rather than to reflect, a decision to place self above surrender. And when those seeds grow, they change the landscape of the heart. Lucifer, Belial, and Beelzebub gained power, but at the cost of peace. They gained a throne, but lost a home. They gained followers, but lost the one whom every soul is made to belong to. Their story shows us that identity is not found in rising above God, but in drawing closer to Him. True greatness is not in trying to become more than what we were created to be, but in learning to shine with the light He placed in us. The real message is simple. Guard the heart. Stay rooted in humility. Give glory where glory is due, because the presence of God is not a limitation. It is the place where the soul is finally whole. This is Gospel Insights. Thank you for watching. If this story spoke to you, go ahead and like, subscribe, and click the bell so you don't miss more powerful biblical revelations. Until next time, stay grounded, stay aware, stay in the light.